In this episode, I'm going to be talking about continued education, and I'm going to be talking about where to get your education from when it comes to learning how to be a dog trainer or continuing or pursuing your education in becoming a dog trainer. There are a couple of schools of thought I've learned over the years when it comes to this topic. The one school of thought is that you should just get your experience or primarily get your experience from hands-on education. Basically, you train dogs, you go out, you put the hours, you put in the repetitions, and you essentially have the dogs teach you. That's one way to get your education. It definitely will work. You will definitely learn that way. That's not a problem. The other way, the other school of thought is that it should be more formal and that you should be involved in some sort of academic process where you go to somebody who is able to teach and communicate with you to help you learn and to essentially speed up your learning curve, to help you bypass some of the common errors that are going to happen if you just do it on your own. Now, which of those you fall into, a lot of it depends on your preference, depends on how you feel about the whole learning process in general. Okay, there are people that are more hands-on, so they tend to be more hands-on in their preference. There are also people that have gotten burnt in previous experiences with institutions. There are people that have had bad experiences from coaching or learning, even if it's not related to dog training at all. So then they have this bitter taste in their mouth when it comes to learning from other people. Understandably so. If I wanted to learn how to do something in an entirely different industry and I paid a lot of money to an institution, and by the end of it, I learned very, very little, and it was so disproportionate to the amount of money that I paid, then I'm naturally going to have some bias, or at least I'm going to be likely to have some bias when it comes to my preference now in terms of learning. So I see people that get pretty passionate about this. So I'm going to answer the question. Obviously, I'm going to give you my bias also. So my bias and my preference is you should go to somebody who is several steps ahead of you. Several steps ahead of you. My experience with this doesn't necessarily imply that the person should have 20 or 30 years on top of what you have. But what I mean is they should have at least done quite well what you're thinking about doing, right? What you're wanting to learn how to do. Sometimes experience is a big thing, but I also know people with 30 years of experience, but their 30 years of experience have been on and off. They haven't been consistently, 30 years in a row. Also, them have the experience, but a lot of times the communication is very difficult. So you could be really good at something and you could still be a lousy teacher. That's a fact. That's how it can happen. But I'm more of a believer in, if you want to learn something, it should be formal. Let me go back to the learning it by the sweat of your brow approach. An analogy time, story time. If you hand a vehicle, okay, you hand a car key to a 14-year-old and you give him a stick shift. On top of that, it's a stick shift. So it's a manual transmission. You hand that vehicle to a 14-year-old that's never driven a car, and you tell him, here are the keys. The ignition is right next to the wheel, and then figure it out and start driving. Now, will this 14-year-old kid eventually learn how to drive? Yes. Eventually, that kid will learn how to drive. And I'm just talking about getting the vehicle going. I'm talking just about that, just about getting the vehicle going and learning how to shift gears. Now, this is complex. I could have told you, what if we give him an automatic transmission? Well, he'll pick it up a lot faster. The manual transmission is going to be trickier because there are more moving parts there. But training dogs is also very complex. There is so much more complexity in that than a mechanical set of movements that will get you from point A to point B. So if you leave this 14-year-old to his own devices, yes, he could probably look it up. Okay, we give him a phone, we give him access to YouTube, and he could probably figure out. He could learn. Probably by the end of the day, if he stays with this for hours, by the end of the day, he'll probably figure out how to move it from point A to point B, not counting the several times that he will stall before he gets to that point. And then he'll learn how to drive it better and better and better and better. But in the meantime, he's also going to be wearing that clutch quite a bit. And then that child, that 14-year-old kid, is going to then have to learn how to navigate the streets and the traffic lights and the roads and all of that. You get my analogy. I think by now you understand where I'm getting at with this, right? Where I'm going with this. Hey, real quick, if you're liking this episode so far, do me a huge favor. Share it with somebody that you think might find it helpful. Give me a follow, hit the like button, and give me some comments. Let me know what you would like me to talk about next. Yes, you can definitely learn it. The child could definitely learn it, but it will take a lot of wear and tear on the clutch. It will take a lot of close calls. It will be very difficult, but if we give that kid that vehicle and he's very dedicated to it, he does it every single day. Yeah, we'll give him like a year. In a year, he will probably, maybe sooner, I'm just speculating here, he'll probably figure out how to drive. But in that year, without having necessarily the guidance, don't you feel like he'll still be lacking? There'll still be some things that he didn't learn because he didn't have that formal instructor that told him, hey, Johnny, let's go ahead. I'm going to sit next to you. This is where you put the key. Now go ahead and step on the clutch. Now go ahead and start the ignition. Put your foot on the brake, start the ignition. Okay, now take the brake off. Now put it in first gear. And this is first gear, by the way. Okay, now I want you to get your foot off the brake. Now I want you to put your right foot on the gas pedal. The gas pedal is this one right here on your right. Now I want you to keep your foot on the clutch. Now I want you to slowly step on the gas pedal and slowly release the clutch. Now you're going to feel a little bit of shaking. I want you to just make that transition until your foot is off the clutch, but you still have your foot on the gas pedal. Now as you get going, I want you to put your foot on the clutch again. You get the idea. You understand. Again, I think you know where I'm going with this. Would you say then that dog training is more complicated than driving a stick shift? I would say so. This is why I firmly believe cut the BS, go to somebody who or go to a place. I'm not even saying go to somebody, but go to a place that has a curriculum. This will cut years of unnecessary clutch wearing, if we make that analogy again. This will cut years of unnecessary suffering on your part. Can you do it? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind you can do it. Should you do it? That's entirely up to you. Should you do it? That's entirely up to you. It's based on what you think is better for you at the end of the day. Okay, you can do whatever you want. You're a sovereign individual. You can take the advice of people that tell you just learn from the dogs. You don't need anything else. You can certainly take that advice, or you can be more specific. You can be more strategic about this and go to a place or a person that is several steps ahead of you and can hypothetically, okay, back to the analogy, that can, figuratively speaking, get on the seat next to you and tell you when to step on the clutch, tell you when to step on the brake pedal, tell you how to shift gears. And you will still suffer. You will still make a lot of mistakes. But what will happen is your learning trajectory will be a lot shorter. You'll get there faster with fewer mistakes. Not to say that the mistakes will not be there. You'll just get there a little bit faster. Now, the people that criticize schooling and formal education will say, well, there are people that never went to these schools. Yes, there are also people that can learn how to drive a vehicle without anybody ever showing them how to. But why would you, having the availability, especially nowadays with the world is so small, okay, you can connect with anybody anywhere. It's easier than ever. There are so many books. There are so many videos. There are so many people you can reach out to by just sending them a message, inquiring. Somebody knows somebody who can help you. Somebody knows a school. Somebody knows or has had the experience from the school that you might be inquiring about. So why would you not want to do it that way? That is my opinion. I can tell you from personal experience, having gone to more than one school. I've gone to different schools because each school I went to filled a void in my knowledge that would help me get to the next level. And then when I got to that level, then there would be a void in another aspect of my experience and my learning. Then I would go to another school that would fill that void. And eventually that's how you get better. At some point, you have all the moving pieces. At some point, you know how to get that vehicle from point A to point B, and you know how to get that vehicle across state lines. And then it's a matter of becoming better and better and better.